What's going on, everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the best deals that I found during these Black Friday and Cyber Monday sales going on. Now, one thing I do need to mention here is this is actually a refurbished laptop from Amazon. Actually, I believe Amazon calls it renewed, but this was listed during their Cyber Monday sales, and I knew I had to get my hands on it. Given the price point and specs here, this is actually one of the best deals that I've ever gotten on a gaming laptop so far. Because with this, I only paid $5.99, and at the time I bought this, they said there was 12 left in stock. Now making this video, I'm seeing there's about 5 in stock on Amazon. I'm not sure if they're going to be bringing more over or not. And again, this was renewed, but I have tested it out. Everything's working, and really the only issue that I've seen is this small dent up top because it does have that aluminum top on it. But everything else here is functional, and I'm not going to complain about that one bit. It's not something that I'd return this for, given what I paid for it and the specs this thing's rocking. It's got a single zone RGB backlit keyboard, and by the way, this is the 2023 model of the TUF A15. And with this, we get a 15.6-inch, 144Hz display. It does support G-Sync. It's IPS. It's not the best quality. It is anti-glare, and that's something I personally like. It looks pretty decent. Not the best in the world, and it really would have been nice if this was a 1440p panel, but I'm not going to complain for the price here. And when it comes to I/O, over here on this side, we've got our power input, gigabit Ethernet, full-size HDMI 2.1. We've also got 2 USB Type-C ports. One of these is 3.2, the other is actually USB 4. And we've also got a full-size USB 3.2 port over here, and another one over on the right-hand side. So it's not loaded down, but we've got just enough here. And I did want to give you a look at the internals here. The configuration that I got has a 1 terabyte drive and 16 gigabytes of DDR5. You can see that it's actually running in single channel, and we've got another free slot. So I'm going to add another 16 gig stick that I have here, but just keep in mind, if you do get one of these with that configuration, there's a chance it might just be running in single channel. It also has another free M.2 slot, so I can add another SSD in here pretty easily. And ASUS is calling this the ARC cooling system. It does look pretty beefy for what we're working with here. It's not super fancy, but we've got a ton of heat pipes here and a dual fan configuration. And of course, when it comes to the overall specs, this is powered by the AMD Ryzen 9 7940HS, so we can expect some pretty decent CPU performance out of this. 8 cores, 16 threads, it'll boost up to 5.2 gigahertz, and as far as I can tell, it'll do up to an 80-watt TDP in this laptop. Originally, it came with 16 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, but I've upgraded to 32, so 2 16 gig sticks running in dual channel, 1 terabyte M.2 SSD. I've also got that RTX 4060, 8 gigabytes of GDDR6, and in this, with the dynamic boost enabled, it'll do up to 140 watts. And we've got that 144Hz, 15.6-inch, 16:9 aspect ratio, 1080p IPS display. We will be getting into some game testing, but real quick, I wanted to give you a look at this because we do have Armory crate built in here, and there's a lot of settings that we can actually change. Over here, GPU mode, I'm set to ultimate, which means we're only going to be using that DGPU, which again is that RTX 4060. Performance mode can be set all the way across the board. Performance, turbo actually works out really well, but obviously, it's going to be a bit louder. It's going to burn more energy. Manual is personally my favorite. And as soon as we go into manual mode, you can see that the TDP on the SPL, SPPT, and the FPPT is set up to 80 watts. So this will do a sustained 80 watt TDP. We can adjust the fan curve, and if you go up this high, I would definitely suggest doing that if you don't mind this thing getting a bit louder. But even at a lower wattage, this 7940HS can hang with some of the best mobile chips out there when it comes to gaming. My favorite part about manual mode is actually the GPU side. Now, we can do this from a third-party application. If you wanted to use Afterburner, you definitely could. But from here, we've got some presets that will allow us to take that RTX 4060 on up there. So our base clock offset, plus 200 megahertz. Memory clock offset, plus 300. Dynamic boost, a plus 25 watt offset, and with this maxed out, I've seen this GPU hit 140 watts, and I know we're only working with the laptop variant of that RTX 4060, but if I head into Furmark real quick, up in the top left-hand corner here with Afterburner, you can see that GPU power jump up to 140 watts in this unit. Now for all of my testing, I'm actually going to be in turbo mode because I think that ASUS has done a great job with this profile here. gives us a little more than that performance mode on the CPU and GPU, and it seems to work out really well. But if you wanted to go into this thing at max performance, just remember, you can always enable manual. So with that out of the way, first thing I wanted to take a look at were a couple benchmarks, and then we're going to get right into some gaming. Geekbench 6, single core, coming in with a 2,557, multi, little over 13,000. I mean, not bad for the price paid here for the refurbished unit. Next up, we've got 3D Mark Steel Nomad, 2,380 total score. And finally, I ran Time Spy, and we're right there at 11,238. And if I was in manual mode with this, we could probably get a little better in these synthetics, but now I want to move over to some real-world gaming and see what this thing can do. First up, we've got Cyberpunk 2077, and keep in mind, the built-in display here is only 1080p. Looks great, but it would be nice if it was a 1440p panel. Now, I do understand that we've got an RTX 4060 here, but with all of the new technologies, there's a lot of games that are going to run at 1440 on this. But with this one here, set up like it is, 1080, Ultra, I'm seeing an average of 78 FPS. Next up, God of War Ragnarok, and I wasn't sure how this was going to perform because I've yet to test this on a 4060, but performance here is really good with a little bit of DLSS. We're at 1080 Ultra quality DLSS, and we're up in the 90s with it. When we get into battle, you'll see in just a second, hardly dips into the mid 80s. Forza Horizon 5, 1080 Ultra, and I know for a fact that this system here would run this at 4K. So if you did want to run this over HDMI, you definitely could take this up to high 4K, and you don't even need DLSS. This is one of those games that just works amazingly with these cards. But of course, a lot of people will be playing on the built-in panel, and at Ultra settings, 1080 no scaling, we're seeing an average of 147 FPS. Spider-Man Remastered, you'll also get the same kind of performance out of Spider-Man Miles Morales, 1080, very high. We don't need any DLSS, IGTI. If you wanted to get more out of it, which you definitely could, you could enable that or even frame gen, but we really don't need it at this resolution. Overwatch 2, 1080 Ultra, and I always forget that there's an epic setting here, so we could take this up to epic at 1080. By the end, we had an average of 176 FPS, which in my opinion is more than enough, and we've got that 144 Hz panel that supports G-Sync, so locking this down, I mean, you could have a really good experience with a game like this. I also tested out the new remastered version of Horizon Zero Dawn, 1080 very high, and I did need to enable some DLSS. I would probably take this to DLSS balanced, and at 1080 on a panel like this, I really can't tell much of a difference between quality and balanced, but you'll see it does get real close to going under that 60 mark. And finally here, Starfield. This is still one of those games that, I just think could do a little bit better. 1080 high, frame gen on. At high settings, 1080, even with DLSS set to balanced, I'm only seeing an average of 58 FPS in cities, and during planet exploration it does jump up to the mid 80s. But if you want to get this up there, frame gen is kind of a must. When it comes down to it, it's definitely a great performer, especially for the price paid. $599, even though it's refurbished, got that little dent on that top aluminum cover. Personally, something I can overlook, and even though it's the end of 2024, I still think that this is one of the best deals that I've seen in a long time. Now, it would be nice to get one of these brand new at this price point, but throughout all of the holiday sales that have been going on, I've been looking for something with an RTX 4060 brand new, and the lowest thing that I've seen was around $839. So if you're able to get your hands on one of these refurbished, I could highly recommend it. I will leave links in the description, and if there's anything else you want to see running on this machine, just let me know in the comments below. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I'm going to mess around with this for a little longer. I do want to try out a different operating system, see what we can do with this, and I know we're running an NVIDIA card, but I think we can get something up and running on this, so keep an eye on the channel. But that's it for this one. Like always, thanks for watching.